is Ray Carsillo for 1050 ESPN, 1050ESPN.com, and I have the distinct pleasure of talking with a 4-time New York Times bestseller author and former editor and writer over at Rolling Stone magazine, and he has a new book coming out called Why ACDC Matters, conveniently priced for $16.66. If you know anything about ACDC, you might get the numbers.
When you take it to the cash register, it sounds like hell's bells.
Nice.
Dong.
Anthony Bozza, thank you for coming to the studio, bro.
Thanks, man. This is fun. Thanks for having me.
No, dude, anytime. I mean, first off, as a huge AC/DC fan, when I was offered you, I was like, Wired Set was like, we've got this author, he's writing the AC/DC book. I'm like, Why AC/DC Matters by Anthony Bozza. And they're like, yeah, and I'm like, yes, come on, bring him on, by all means. Awesome. So, I mean, this book has gotten a lot of good hype because it shows you a side of AC/DC that the more hardcore fan may know, but it also shows sides that, unless you are like die hard into music and stuff, it gives you a lot of different aspects that you might not know about AC/DC.
Yeah.
And I mean, it explains why. I mean, I've always had the argument. I mean, my friends going like, AC/DC. It's like, it's the same 3 chords. It's the same thing over and over again. This book, it gives me a weapon. It's like, boom. This is why AC/DC matters. So I guess the first question is, after that long, ridiculous, rambling intro.
No, it's all true, man. I felt the same way. That's why I was like, I can write this book. I'm going to write this book. So
nice. So I'm going to say, well, why did you want to write this book?
I mean, really, I've been a huge AC/DC fan, and the main thing really was, being at Rolling Stone, at basically the most iconic American music magazine we have. I really kind of got tired of seeing AC/DC left out of all of like the greatest, blanks of rock lists and stuff like that. And I think that attitude, I use Rolling Stone as an example just because I worked there for 7 years and I saw it from the inside, and I was in meetings where AC/DC was brought up and kind of, people were kind of like, whatever. And I generally felt like people thought I had bad taste because I loved them. And, I think that goes across the board, a lot of other outlets that really like leave them off the greatest whatever lists. Even when like Black Ice was the #1 album, in like 29 countries last year, and the tour was doing so well. I'd read stuff in the New York Times and other places where it seemed like the reviewer, the critic was like writing they were writing about it as if they had to cover it. Mm-hmm. They certainly didn't like it. They were trying to see the merits. They were saying, whereas before they might have said, these guys have put out the same record 1,000,000 times. They do the same song. Now they were saying, good for them. They've been doing the same thing all these years. But no one was ever like, that same thing is great. You never hear anyone saying like B.B. King's been doing the same song over and over again. But for some reason they really get kind of get that rap, and I just think it's ridiculous. It's a lot more musicianship going on there. Mm-hmm. If you can write 140 songs with just 3 or 4 chords, you're doing something right. Because if you listen to an AC/DC album, it's undeniably them, but it's not like every single song is the same really at all.
Right.
So, sort of lit my fire and got me psyched up to do this.
Nice. Now, I mean, the best part about AC/DC is that they've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
So at what point did you realize you were a huge AC/DC fan?
When I was a kid, my neighbor across the street, his older brother, I'll never forget it, and I write about it in the book a little bit. I remember we used to like kind of sneak into his room because he was a teenager and he had like cool stuff, and he was not letting us like 2 little rugrats get in there when he was home. So I remember going in there and he had like a black light version of the Highway to Hell album cover, and I remember seeing the letters, and he also had like the Swan Song Led Zeppelin thing and a Pink Floyd poster, and I had no idea what any of that stuff was, and it kind of scared me, but I was also kind of into it. I was like, I want to know what that is. And that really started it, and then I've seen them a bunch of times over the years, and it's just never really stopped. They're always a band. Like, I've listened to them so much to write this book, and if you put them on right now, I'd want to like go tear something up. It's just so great. It just never really gets old. It's like listening to Chuck Berry, same thing. Old rock and roll has that same great backbeat and that same just like electricity to it that I just love.
Yeah, I love the word you used a bit in the book was primal. Yeah. It had that primal beat that you just had to just like bob your head to it and stomp your feet and want to do something.
Yeah,
it gets your blood pumping. What do you think, now, I mean, they're in their early 60s now. What do you think, how do they bring that to the stage still every time they go out there?
Yeah.
What can you attribute that to, do you think?
I mean, I really think, we've a quote in the back cover of the book, but Angus says, like, after a show, he said basically, like, when he's on stage, he goes back to the state of being a caveman, and it takes him like 6 hours to come down afterwards. I think that they were completely turned on by, the early days of rock and roll, and they still are, because I saw the last tour like 4 times, and Angus, all of them are right around 60. A couple are over, a couple are under. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about guys that, should be enjoying, like, playing a nice round of golf. And it's an athletic experience still. Angus sweats, and he puts out more energy than bands that are, like, in their 20s. You know? Like, I don't think, like, Kings of Leon's exhausted after a show like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's really an athletic experience. A lot of the interesting people I talked to for the book, 2 of which were professors at the Berklee School of Music, mm-hmm. and the dean of voice over there, or one of the associate professors of voice, she really got into that element of how singing like that is like an athletic experience, mm-hmm. because it takes a lot of lung control, and you have to, like, pace yourself. And that really is still there. These guys their age generally have, like, backup singers to hit the high notes in the back. Sometimes they add a guitarist. Like, it's not happening with these dudes. It's just, this is who they are, this is what they do. And I think, they're so dedicated to the craft that as soon as that, slips a little bit, they're probably going to hang it up.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you mentioned that they're in their 60s. Do you think that maybe, as fans, Black Ice is probably their last studio album?
I hope it's not, mm-hmm. but I really think it might be. They took an 8-year break. Right. They certainly don't, I think their mortgages are all paid off at this point. They don't really need to do this. And they're clearly not guys, like, another reason why I love them so much is that, this is what they do, and then they go back to their lives. There's no, there's no ego. There's been no, like, Malcolm Young, like, bluegrass record. Nobody's done a solo record. So I think that really, really what it's going to come down to, and we talk about it again with the professor of voice, is that, like, I think there's only so long that Brian can actually sing like that. Yeah. The other guys will be able to play a lot longer than he'll be able to sing. But they're the kind of band that, if one guy can't do it and they can't make it as great as it can be, I don't think they'll do it. I think they would, like, go out on a high note, which this is a pretty high note right now. So I don't want to be, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but it might be the end. Definitely go see them now.
Yeah, no, I was fortunate enough on the first Black Ice tour, because now they're on the world tour. I saw them 3 times myself.
Nice.
So, yeah, and I was like, because...
And it's good every time, right? It's just amazing. They're incredible.
I could not believe it that every time I went, I was just like, I could just watch this every day and just still get pumped up.
Yeah.
I mean, and you said, Angus, when they do Let There Be Rock... And he just, for 7-8 minutes, just going nuts all over the arena. And it's like, this guy's, like you said, in his early 60s.
Yeah.
And you just realize, these guys got it. These guys know it. This is what they live, they breathe. And when they're on the stage, they are beyond belief. And like you said, you have to go see them in concert if you've never seen them live.
Do it. And the thing, too, it's not like Angus, you don't hear stories about Angus being like a marathon jogger or anything. He smokes tons of cigarettes. And this little guy's, like, drenched in sweat, spinning on the ground, jumping off of stuff. And, most people's dads that are around that age might, like, pull their sciatic nerve. Like, this guy's just still kicking butt. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's truly something to behold. Now, something that you talked about in the book a bit was... which I thought was very interesting, was like Rock Band and Guitar Hero, mm-hmm. and how, and I guess in pop culture in general, how they've kind of distanced themselves from it, but they've still made their mark, and they've still, said, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it this way.
Right.
How hard do you think it's been for them to do that, and then still get their music out there to a younger generation?
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes about who they are. Like, their dedication to pretty much doing it their way. They're from the generation where a rock band puts out an album, you're listening to the whole album. All you all you could do was, like, buy the vinyl, so you listen to the whole thing. And they're really, really serious about having, like, their downloads need to be the whole album. They don't like the idea of, like, a greatest hits collection. They did, the Who Made Who, or that whole album.
The Maximum Overdrive
thing. That was as close as they came. But, it's kind of amazing when just about every single other classic rock band has sold the back catalog to iTunes. Like, these guys are sort of waiting for the time when will only be able to for people to buy the whole record.
Yeah.
And I think they managed to do that really well with Rock Band, because they gave like the entire live record. It's not just like one song here on one Rock Band, one on another. It's like you have to do not only a whole AC/DC album, but a whole AC/DC concert.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. I think that's just really true to like their identity, you know?
Well, right now, Why ACDC Matters is out everywhere. Pick that up. Anthony Bozza, sir, it has been
Thanks,
a pleasure.
man.
It has been a pleasure talking to you. Again, the book AC/DC, Why AC/DC Matters. Anthony Bozza, man, thank you so much for coming by. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. It was fun. Thanks.